biological classification. I have finished till fungi in my last video, so I'll continue from fungi kingdom. Kingdom fungi. The fungi constitute a unique kingdom of the heterotrophic organisms. They show great diversity in morphology and habitat. You must have seen fungi on moist bread also and rotten fruits. The common mushroom you eat and toadstools are also fungi. White spots seen on mustard leaves are due to a parasitic fungi. Some unicellular fungi, example used, are used to make bread and beer. Other fungi can cause diseases in plants and animals. Wheat rust causing Puccinia is an important example. Some are the source of antibiotics, example penicillium. Fungi are cosmopolitan and occur in air, water, soil, and on animals and plants. They prefer to grow in warm and humid places. Have you ever wondered why we keep food in a refrigerator? Yes, it is to prevent food from going bad due to bacterial or fungal infections. With the exception of yeast, which are unicellular, fungi are filamentous, meaning multicellular. They form filaments or colonies. Their body consists of long slender thread-like structures called hyphae. The network of these thread-like structures is what we call as mycelium. These hyphae are continuous tubes with multinucleated cytoplasm. If there are multinucleate cytoplasm, there are no septae, and it is called a cenocytic hyphae. Others have septae or cross walls in their hyphae. The cells of fungi are composed of chitin and polysaccharides. Most fungi are heterotrophic and absorb soluble organic matter from dead substrates and hence are called saprophytes. Depend on dead and decaying matter. Those that depend on living plants and animals are called parasites. They can also live as symbionts in association with algae as lichens and with roots of higher plants as mycorrhiza. Reproduction in fungi can take place by vegetative means, which is through fragmentation, fission, budding. Asexual reproduction is by spores. These spores are called conidia or conidiospores, sporangiospores or zoospores. And sexual reproduction is by oospores, ascospores and basidiospores. The various spores are produced in distant structures called fruiting bodies. The sexual cycle involves the following three steps: fusion of protoplasms between two motile or non-motile gametes. Fusion of motile or non-motile gametes is called plasmogamy. Fusion of two nuclei is called karyogamy. Meiosis in zygote resulting in haploid spores. When a fungus reproduces sexually, two haploid hyphae of compatible mating type come together and fuse. In some fungi, the fusion of two haploid cells immediately results in diploid cells. However, in other eukaryotic stages, it will remain as n+1, that is 2 nuclei per cell, called the dikaryophase of fungus. Later, the parental nuclei fuse and cells become diploid. The fungi form fruiting bodies in which reduction division occurs, leading to formation of haploid spores. The morphology of mycelium, mode of spore formation, and fruiting bodies form the basis for the division of the kingdom of fungi into various classes. The first class we see is the Phycomycetes. Before that, we'll see the diagrams given here of A being mucor, B is penicillium, this is mucor, this is aspergillus, and this is our mushroom. This structure is the annulus. This is the pilium, I believe. This is the stem, stride. Let's continue. Phycomycetes. Members of Phycomycetes are found in aquatic habitats and on decaying wood in moist and damp places, or as obligate parasites on plants. Members of Phycomycetes are found in aquatic, decaying wood, and moist and damp places. They prefer moist and damp places, or as parasites. The mycelium is aseptate cenocytic, meaning multinucleate stage. Hyphae is multinucleate. There is no septa. Asexual reproduction takes place by zoospores. Aplanospores, you can call them as zoospores if they are motile, and aplanospores if they are non-motile. These spores are endogenously produced in the sporangium. They are endogenously produced. A zoospore is formed by fusion of two gametes. A zygospore is formed by fusion of two gametes, which is identified by its name itself, zygote formed by fusion of two gametes. These gametes are similar in morphology, isogamous. If they are similar in morphology, it's isogamous. Dissimilar in morphology, it is anisogamous or oogamous. Some common examples are mucor, rhizopus, and albugo. Rhizopus, albugo, and mucor. P, M, R, and A. A ramp, where R is for rhizopus, A is for albugo, M is for mucor, and P is for phycomycetes. Examples: ramp, phycomycetes. And as for the next division, the main characteristics of the phycomycetes is that they live in they exist in moist or damp places. They have a cenocytic and aseptate hyphae or mycelium. They reproduce asexually through aplano or zoospores, motile and non-motile spores, and these spores are endogenously produced in sporangium. And a zygospore is formed by fusion of two gametes. Gametes are similar. These gametes can be similar in morphology, isogamous, or dissimilar in anisogamous or oogamous, where the male gamete is small and motile and female gamete is large and non-motile. Examples are ramp, rhizopus, albugo, mucor under the phycomycetes. The next division of the kingdom is known as ascomycetes, commonly known as sac fungi. There is no common name given here for phycomycetes. Commonly known as sac fungi, the ascomycetes are mostly multicellular. Example: penicillium, or rarely unicellular. Example: yeast, Saccharomycetes. They are saprophytic, decomposers, parasitic, or coprophilous, growing on dung. Basically, they are known as sac fungi. They are mostly multicellular. The unicellular is yeast, and penicillium is an example. And they are saprophytic. They are decomposers. They can be parasites. They can be growing on dung, which is called coprophilous. Mycelium is branched and septate. Here we see branched and septate mycelium. The asexual spores are conidia, produced exogenously on the special mycelium called conidiophores. In the phycomycetes case, we saw that asexual spores, which are zoospores and aplonospores, are produced endogenously, but in this case, they are produced exogenously in special structures called conidiophores. Special mycelium called conidiophores. Conidia on germination produces mycelium. Sexual spores are called ascospores, which are produced endogenously in a sac-like asci. Singular is ascus. These ascus or asci are arranged in different types of fruiting bodies called ascocarps. Some examples are aspergillus, claviceps, neurospora. Neurospora is usually used extensively in biochemical and genetic work. Many members like morels and truffles and are edible are considered delicacies. The standout points of ascomycetes: first, that it is called as sac fungi, and the infamous penicillium comes under the ascomycetes along with yeast. They are saprophytic or corpophilous or parasitic. Mycelium is aseptate and mycelium is septate and branched. Asexual spores are produced exogenously by a special mycelium called conidiophores, and sexual spores are called ascospores produced in ascus endogenously. A group of asci is called ascus fruiting bodies, or called ascocarps. Some of the examples are Aspergillus, claviceps, Neurospora. And one more standout point is morels and truffles, which are considered delicacies and are edible along with mushroom, as well as found under the Ascomycetes families. Wait, no. Mushroom is not under Ascomycetes. The examples are Aspergillus, claviceps, Neurospora, penicillium, yeast. We can take penicillium, yeast, then yes, that's all. These are the examples: Aspergillus, claviceps, Neurospora, penicillium, and yeast. These come under the Ascomycetes. So we can and I'm trying for an easy abbreviation like the ramp, but there doesn't seem to be anything of the sort here. Cap for claviceps, aspergillus, and penicillium coming under Ascomycetes, or nap for Neurospora, aspergillus, and penicillium. Penicillium, aspergillus, and yeast. We can remember these abbreviations or the main examples of ACN belonging to Ascomycetes. A can, A for Ascomycetes, C for claviceps, A for aspergillus, N for Neurospora. The next is Basidiomycetes, the next kingdom under the next division under the fungi kingdom. Commonly known as the forms of Basidiomycetes are mushrooms. Here under Ascomycetes was called as sac fungi. Here the Basidiomycetes are called bracket fungi or puffballs. And the example we can take is mushroom, or common agaricus mushroom. They grow in soil, on logs, tree stumps, and in living plant bodies as parasites. Example: rust and smuts. The mycelium is branched and septate. Only for mycelium, which is cenocytic, it is seen in Phycomycetes. The asexual spores are generally not found. No asexual spores in Basidiomycetes, but vegetative reproduction by fragmentation is common. The asexual reproduction is through fragmentation, which is vegetative mode. The sex organs are absent, but plasmogamy is brought up by fusion of two vegetative or somatic cells of different strains of genotypes. The resultant structure is dikaryotic, which ultimately gives rise to basidium. Karyogamy and meiosis take place in the basidium, producing 4 basidiospores. The Spores are exogenously produced on the basidium, plural basidia. The basidia are arranged in fruiting bodies called basidiocarp. Some common members are agaricus, astilago, the smut, and Puccinia rust fungus. Basically, unique features of Basidiomycetes is they are called bracket fungi or puffballs. Their examples are rusts and smuts. The mycelium is branched and septate. It's not really a unique feature, but it is seen. And the unique feature is asexual spores are not seen. And vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation. And there are no sex organs. Plasmogamy is brought up by fusion of two vegetative cells or somatic cells of different strains of genotypes. Two different genotypes, body cells will merge or plasmogamy happens, and the resultant structure is doesn't have a fused karyogamy. Karyogamy doesn't happen, but plasmogamy happens, meaning the cytoplasm will fuse but the nucleus will not fuse. This is called the dikaryophase. This is seen in Basidiomycetes. And after the fusion of the plasmogamy is done, this resultant structure will give rise to basidium. This basidium, then the structure will undergo karyogamy, fusion of the two nuclei, and then after the fusion, meiosis takes place to each fused structure, giving rise to 4 basidiospores. The basidiospores are exogenously produced on the basidium. Basically, in biological classification, the cells no asexual reproduction, no asexual spores. Vegetative reproduction is there. This is Basidiomycetes. No sexual spores. Reproduction is present. No sexual organs. Plasmogamy. Fusion of cytoplasm. Normally it is both fusion of cytoplasm and karyogamy, but in the special case of Basidiomycetes, it is only fusion of cytoplasm, at least in the first phase. Occurs in body cells to give a dikaryophase, a two nucleus phase. Basically, two cells will fuse to give an N+N ploidy. This resultant structure will give rise to basidium. this basidium, this is n plus n structure. Then this basidium, after this arises, this basidium so basically this basidium, these two nuclei will fuse and the karyogamy will follow. Then after karyogamy, meiosis will happen. So a diploid cell will give rise to 4 haploid gametes when both the meiosis takes place. So 4 basidiospores will be produced. And that is the basidiospores, and these fruiting bodies are called basidiocarp, and they are produced exogenously. When we saw that in Phycomycetes the spores were produced exogenously, the asexual spores, and the sexual means was by zoospores, right? Is isogamous, anisogamous, or oogamous spores, and asexual spores were produced exogenously. And Ascomycetes, the sexual spores were produced endogenously in structures of asci, but in Basidiomycetes the spores are produced exogenously. And these basidia are arranged in fruiting bodies called basidiocarps. Some common members are agaricus, mushroom, and astilago, and puccinia. It is, we can remember A, U, P are the example of a total of, under Basidiomycetes we can remember it as a BOP, A for agaricus, B for Basidiomycetes, U for astilago. Astilago is the smut, and whereas puccinia is the rust fungus. Astilago is the smut fungus and puccinia is the rust fungus. A BOP. Ramp for Phycomycetes, where R is rhizopus, A is A is albugo, M is mucor, and P is penicillium. No, P is Phycomycetes. And in case of Ascomycetes, it is a can, A for Ascomycetes, C for claviceps, A for aspergillus, N for neurospora. A BOP for Basidiomycetes, A for agaricus, B for Basidiomycetes, U for astilago, P for puccinia. The truffles and morels, which are delicacies, are seen under the Ascomycetes division and not under Basidiomycetes or Phycomycetes. And Deuteriomycetes, commonly known as the imperfect fungi, because only the asexual or vegetative phases of these fungi are known, meaning there are no sexual phases of this fungi. When the sexual forms of these fungi were discovered, they were moved into classes they rightfully belonged to. It is also when Deuteriomycetes has fungi which their sexual stage or sexual reproduction is not found out. When this sexual stage is found out, Then they will be moved from deuteriomycetes to their respective class. It also possible that asexual and vegetative stage have been given one name and placed under deuteriomycetes, and the sexual stage another and placed under another class. Later, when the linkages were established, the fungi were correctly identified and moved out of deuteriomycetes. Once perfect sexual stage of members of deuteriomycetes were discovered, they were often moved to ascomycetes and basidiomycetes. The deuteriomycetes reproduce only with asexual spores known as conidia. The mycelium is septate and branched. Some members are saprophytes or parasites, while a large number of them are decomposers of litter, help in mineral cycling. Some examples are Alternaria, Coletotrichum, and Trichoderma. Trichoderma causes sleeping sickness, right? Or Trypanosoma. I think it is Trypanosoma. It's not Trichoderma. Trypanosoma is a protozoan parasite, just transmitted by the tsetse fly in the African region. A genus found in soil commonly. Okay. Now the small topics of animal and plant kingdom, then followed by virus, viroids, and prions and lichens. Kingdom Plantae. Kingdom Plantae includes all eukaryotic as we have the next chapter, Kingdom Plantae. I'm not going to explain either Kingdom Animalia or Plantae briefly. I'm just going to read it out. Kingdom Plantae includes all eukaryotic chlorophyll containing organisms commonly called plants. A few members are partially heterotrophic, such as insectivorous plants or parasites. Bladderwort and Venus flytrap are example of insectivorous plants, and Cuscuta is a parasite. The plant cells have an eukaryotic structure with prominent chloroplast and cell wall mainly made of cellulose. You will study the eukaryotic cell structure in detail in chapter 8. Plantae includes algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. These are the divisions under the plant kingdom. Life cycle of plants has two distinct phases, the diploid sporophytic and haploid gametophytic phase, that alternate with each other. The lengths of a haploid and diploid phases and whether these phases are free living or dependent on others vary among different groups in plants. This phenomenon is called alternation of generation. Alternation of generations. You will study further details in the next chapter. Kingdom Animalia. The Kingdom Animalia is characterized by heterotrophic eukaryotic organisms that are multicellular and their cells lack cell walls. They directly, indirectly depend on plant for food. They digest their food in an internal cavity and store food coelom cavity. Store food reserves as glycogen and fat. Their mode of nutrition is holozoic, meaning engulfing or injection of food. They follow a definite growth pattern and grow into adults that have a definite shape and size, as in plants, not as in plants which show indefinite growth. Animals show definite growth. Higher forms show elaborate sensory and neuromotor mechanism. The highest form is us, which we show the maximum. Most of them are capable of locomotion. Sexual reproduction is by copulation of male and female, followed by embryological development. Salient feature of the various phyla are described in chapter 4. Next, the main topic is viruses, viroids, and prions and lichens. In the 5 kingdom classification of Whittaker, there is no mention of lichens and some acellular organisms like viruses, acellular meaning lack a cell, viruses, viroids, and prions. These are briefly introduced here. All of us who have suffered the ill effects of the common cold or flu know what effects virus can have on us. Even if we do not associate with our condition, viruses did not find a place in our classification since they are not considered truly living. If we understand living as those organisms that have a cell structure, the viruses are non-cellular organisms that are characterized by having an inert crystalline structure outside the living cell. which is the head, collar, and sheath. This is for tobacco mosaic virus. This is a bacteriophage. Bacteriophages are not bacteria but viruses which infect bacteria. Viruses which infect bacteria or unicellular organisms are called as bacteriophages. Once they infect a cell, they take over the machinery of the host cell to replicate themselves, killing the host. Answer for that question, basically now we define them as acellular. Because of that, we did not include it in our classification, so it is acellular itself. They are just acellular. They have an inert crystalline structure outside the living cell. Inert crystalline structure. Here, this whole layer sheath is called a caspid, and single individual layers are called casmomeres. And the viruses may either have RNA or DNA as genetic material. Virus means venom or poisonous fluid. Maitri Ivanovsky, 1892, recognized certain microbes as casual organisms of the mosaic, causing organisms of the mosaic disease of tobacco. These were found to be smaller than bacteria because they pass through bacteria-proof filters. M.W. Bajernik, 1898, demonstrated that the extract of the infected plants of tobacco could cause infection in healthy plants and named the new pathogen virus called the fluid as Contagium vivum fluidum, infectious living fluid. W.M. Stanley, 1935, showed that viruses could be crystallized, and crystals consist largely of proteins. They are inert outside, and their specific host cell. Viruses are obligate parasites. In addition to proteins, viruses also contain genetic material that could be either RNA or DNA. No virus contains both RNA and DNA. A virus is a nucleoprotein and the genetic material is infectious. In general, viruses that infect plant have single-stranded RNA, and viruses that infect animals have either single or double-stranded RNA. Basically, in general, viruses that infect plants have a single-stranded RNA, and viruses that infect animals have either single or double-stranded RNA or double-stranded DNA. Bacterial viruses or bacteriophages, viruses that infect the bacteria, are usually double-stranded DNA viruses. The protein coat called caspid, made of small subunits called casmomeres, protects the nucleic acid. These casmomeres are arranged in helical or polyhedral geometrical forms. Virus causes diseases like mumps, smallpox, herpes, and influenza. Basically, influenza is our common cold or flu. AIDS in humans is also caused by a virus. No, it's not common cold. Influenza, it is different. Common cold is caused by mostly rhinoviruses, and nasal congestion in case of common cold. Sore throats very common in common cold. Duration 1 to 2 weeks. This can be serious. Influenza can be serious. Complications rare in case of common cold. Okay. In plants, The symptoms can be mosaic formation, leaf rolling, curling, yellowing, and vein clearing, dwarfing, and stunted growth. Viroids. In 1971, T.O. Diner discovered a new infectious agent that was smaller than even viruses and caused potato spindle tuber disease. It was found to be a free RNA. It lacked the protein code that was found in viruses, hence the name viroid. The RNA of the viroid was a low molecular weight. Prions. In modern medicine, certain infectious or neurological diseases were found to be transmitted by an agent consisting of abnormally, that is, a viroid is basically RNA without a protein code. It was found to cause a potato spindle tuber disease, and the RNA of the viroid was of low molecular weight. Size was even less than viruses. Prions. The next topic is prions. In modern medicine, certain infectious neurological diseases were found to be transmitted by an agent consisting of abnormally folded protein. Basically, prion is a abnormally folded protein which is transmitting diseases. Basically, the agent this is actually the agent which is causing these diseases, an abnormally folded protein. The agent was similar in size to viruses. It was larger than viroids, similar in size to viruses. These agents are called as prions. The most notable disease caused by prions are the bovine spongiform encephalopathy, BSE, commonly called mad cow disease in cattle, and its analogous variant, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD, in humans. It is bovine spongiform encephalopathy in mad cow disease in cattle, and Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD, in humans. Lichens. The next topic is lichens. Lichens are symbiotic association, that is mutually useful associations between algae and fungi. The algal component is known as the phycobiont, phyco meaning plant, so algae, and fungal component is known as mycobiont, myco meaning fungi, which are autotrophic and heterotrophic because algae can photosynthesize, for fungi are heterotrophic respectively. Algae prefer food for fungi, and fungi provide shelter and absorb mineral nutrients and water for its partner, which is algae. So close is their association that if one saw a lichen in nature, one would never imagine that they had two different organisms within them. Lichens are very good pollution indicators. They do not grow in polluted areas. Basically what they are saying, they are so close, like if one saw a lichen, it is very hard to differentiate that there are two living organisms, two different kingdoms of organisms basically, and they are very good pollution indicators. They do not grow in polluted areas. Summary. I'll not highlight the summary. Biological classification of plants and animals was first proposed by Aristotle on basis of simple morphological characters. Linnaeus later classified all living organisms into two kingdoms of Plantae and Animalia. Whittaker proposed an elaborate five-kingdom classification of Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. The main criteria for the five-kingdom classification were cell structure, body organization, mode of nutrition, reproduction, and phylogenetic relationships. In the five-kingdom classification, bacteria are included in the kingdom of Monera. Bacteria are cosmopolitan in distribution. These organisms show the most extensive metabolic diversity. Many bacteria may be autotrophic or heterotrophic in their mode of nutrition. Kingdom Protista includes all single-celled eukaryotes such as chrysophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds, and protozoans. Protists have defined nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. They reproduce both asexually and sexually. Members of kingdom fungi show a great diversity in structure and habitat. Most fungi are saprophytic in their mode of nutrition. They show asexual and sexual reproduction. Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes, and Deuteriomycetes are the floor classes under this kingdom. The Plantae includes all eukaryotic chlorophyll containing organisms. Algae, bryophytes, bradophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms are included in this group. The life cycle of plants exhibit alternation of generations, gametophytic and sporophytic generations. The heterotrophic eukaryotic multicellular organisms lacking a cell wall are included in the kingdom of Animalia. The mode of is cut. Maybe they meant the mode of nutrition in the kingdom of Animalia is heterotrophic. It is cut off from there. The mode of. Anyways, with this I completed my first revision of biological classification. Via NCERT. See you in my next video.